There's personal finance for the masses. This is not personal finance for the masses.
Okay, let's see if this card goes through for that $8,000 drink.
Exactly. Everybody wants to get part of the in crowd. Everybody wants to look good.
My decision was, I'm not a victim. I'm not going to stay and work someplace where this is a problem.
Normally we don't drink on Queer Money, but because we're talking about a subject that David is rather vanilla on,
Grab a glass of wine because you're listening to Queer Money with the Debt-Free Guys. This is the only show helping our community do more and be more by talking about money from the queer perspective.
So we're the Debt-Free Guys. David Rae is joining us. This is our second iteration of Queer Money, and we're going about it a bit different. We are hoping to have, since we do think that investing is very key to a sound financial plan, even though we are in the investing world, we don't actually deal with investments on a day-to-day basis. So we've invited David Rae to join us for today's talk, and we're going to have him come back regularly, maybe monthly, every few weeks or so, to talk more about the specific sides of investing, as opposed to just general personal finance. So welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad to be back. Happy Pride.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, you too.
So on this show, we're talking about gay pride and financial prejudice. I tried to merge pride with Pride and Prejudice, so I don't know how creative I was. But, there seems to be, at least in our community, in Denver, there seems to be a lot of concern about outward appearances, looking physically beautiful, having great clothing, having a great house and cars, and all that stuff. But we also wonder sometimes, like, what's below the surface and how are people managing their finances? One of the disparities that David and I recognize is that, the queer community is pretty inclusive. We're an open family, I think. We kind of built our own family together in many cases. And, so we have people who are doctors and lawyers and, high-end professionals who are hanging out with people who work in retail, who work in restaurants. And not that there's anything wrong with the career path that people choose, but they're all hanging out together, doing the same things, traveling at the same time together, buying the same clothing, and the disparities, kind of there, right? Yeah. So how do you reconcile that? So we wonder, how are people spending their money, and are they spending it wisely relative to what their income is and all that?
All right. I think one of the things we talked about in the first iteration of Queer Money was this overspending to overcompensate idea, and I know personally when I look back on my spending habits when we were getting into debt, and even shortly after we realized that we needed to get out of debt, we really kind of at first didn't take a really good look at what was causing our spending. And looking back on it now, I know, if hindsight is 20/20, looking back on it, I know that there were times when I would buy certain things, go out to certain places just to be seen and to give the impression that I was a particular person. And yeah. I know that I look back on my upbringing and just the kind of family that I had, that I felt like I needed to move. When I moved from my family into my queer family, into the gay community, I felt like I needed to fit in. And
absolutely, I think there is a lot of that. I mean, you do have the people wanting to present a certain way, and then you sometimes, John, you brought up a good point. Sometimes you're not even trying to overcompensate. You're just friends with people who aren't blinking an eye, or for their perspective, they're booking the cheap hotel on that trip, and you're still going, oh my God, that's more than I can afford. It's going on my credit card. Right. So it's not necessarily just the overcompensation. It's just sometimes, a lot of times we talk about keeping up with the Joneses or trying to compete with people, and sometimes it's just hanging out with your friends. I mean, you go out to the gay bar and have drinks, all of a sudden you spent $200 on drinks very quickly. Maybe my money does go a lot farther at the bars than you can buy any drinks, but compared to here, but you're still spending a lot of money. So it's not just the overcompensation. I do think, though, you do see that a lot in the gay community. You do see a lot of 22-year-olds working retail, driving, 7 Series BMWs for $1,200 a month, and or cars cost more than their rent. To each their own. But if it means you can't pay your bills, it's a different conversation.
Right.
No one wants to be in debt. No one wants to just be a shell of looking good. I mean, we want to look good, but you want to be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be good on paper as well. And I think it's sometimes, you guys probably went through this when you guys were probably paying off your debt. You probably were getting in better financial shape, but outwardly you probably looked worse off because you're like, oh my God, we can't afford this, we're not spending this, and it sounds like you're not as successful or doing as well, but actually you're getting in better financial shape.
Yeah. When we changed our lives drastically. When we finally realized that we were financial nightmares, we're like, this has to change, stop immediately. And we went from spending, it wasn't, out of the realm of possibility. We would spend several $100s, if not $1,000 on a weekend, with nothing really to show for it. And then we went and we restricted ourselves to spending no more than $100 a weekend. And that became really hard for us. Yeah. But in hindsight,
congrats on doing that. And the good side is you'll probably look better too. The less you drink, probably the less you have to work out.
Well, we discovered boxed wine. So I don't know if we looked better.
Each their own, how you get there to save the money.
But David talked about hindsight being 20/20. I was on a podcast of Emma Johnson's several months ago, and she asked, why having been in finance for so many years, and having, well-educated and all that kind of stuff, why were we living contrary to what our bank account said contrary to what our bank account said we could? And after having discussed it with David and thinking about it a lot, I think for me anyway, we were trying to overcompensate for maybe not having the upbringing or the childhood that we would have wanted. I think about, you have straight people start dating in middle school and high school, right? And when we were growing up, it wasn't okay to be gay, and we didn't really start dating anybody that we really wanted to date when we were in high school. Right. And even in college, in some cases, that didn't really start to happen. So we kind of came out when we were in our mid-20s and 30s, and that was about when we started earning more money than we'd ever earned before, and that kind of coalesced into like this financial nightmare that we kind of created for ourselves. So we were getting these fat paychecks relative to what we were doing when we were younger, and all of a sudden going out to the clubs, and we thought we could afford much more than we actually could. So I wonder, does that was about 10 years ago. I wonder, does that still happen today, do we think?
I think a lot of people that still happens. I mean, definitely in the gay community, I think specifically because we are running behind, but I think it's very easy too for anyone just coming out of college and all of a sudden you're on your own for your first time. I think for us in the gay community, it is a bigger eye-opening experience because, you probably were partying if you were straight and you're like, ooh, I'm meeting girls. But for us in the gay community, this is our first time quite often meeting other men or really having the opportunity where we're walking in. You might have gone to the party. There may have been another gay kid at high school for some of the younger generations, but like, there's that one kid. Yeah. If it doesn't work for you, good luck. Where now, I mean, it is amazing to go into the big city, and we're not 22 anymore, but it's still fun to go out and be around people and be at different events and things. And it is very easy to go overboard in clothes and going out and drinking and travel and all those fun things that. Yeah, there's a gay trip every weekend. If you really want to blow your budget, you could be somewhere every weekend.
Yeah, we'd look at some of our friends on Facebook, and I'm like, I don't know how they can afford all of this travel. I mean, the disparity is just mind-boggling. Yeah. So is it? Do we suspect then that they are in that space where we were 10 years ago? We were just ignoring that?
Well, I think that there's a very strong, and this is a cultural thing in the United States, a very strong cultural need, or maybe even a cultural suppression for us to appear successful. Yeah. So whether you're a gay person just getting out of college, or a gay person who's in their mid to late 30s, or in your 50s, or if you're a single person who is just getting out of college and you're straight, or you have a family, no matter what stage you're at in your life, you look at what's on TV, you look at what you see in online content, you look at what your family members are doing or friends are doing. There's a strong need to tell other people that I am a success. And I think that comes from inside. You know, everyone wants that validation of I am a success. But I think for our culture especially, the way that we display success is outwardly. We have nice cars, we have nice homes, we're changing up. We're always up, spiraling up, whether it's our car is spiraling up, our homes are spiraling up, our relationships are spiraling up. And I don't think that there's it's any different for us as gay people. I actually think sometimes there may be, like John was saying, we didn't grow up with maybe some of the abilities to display our success in who we actually were as people in our high school years or college years, so maybe even a little bit more. And then, like you said, John, the first time you get that paycheck, that first paycheck that comes, and you go from not making any money to all of a sudden now you're making, maybe
Liberated.
$2,000 or $3,000 per paycheck, and it's like, woohoo, I have a lot of money.
Yeah. David, you have clients, right? When you talk with your clients, do they get the disparity between what they make and what they're spending?
I think because I work with, I do talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people have no clue. For my actual clients, because I probably deal with people who are maybe a little better with their money, a little more successful than the average person, just of who I happen to be lucky enough to work with. Mm-hmm. They're getting that, but a lot of times they don't really know. You'll say, I need a new car, and their 3-year-old BMW is now last season, and you don't need a new one unless your lease is up, which I'm a big fan of owning your car and driving it for the long term. I own my car, it's paid off, all that good stuff, and I want to drive it. It's forever. It's a nice car, don't get me wrong, but they're all, I need a new couch. Well, why do you need a new couch? Did something happen to your old one? I need a new outfit. I need to go shopping. I'm like, we just talked last week and you were shopping. You still do that stuff, and a lot of them have the money to do it. I don't really care where you spend your money, as long as you're on track for your financial goals. If you are saving for, you have your emergency fund, you have money going for retirement. If your goal is to buy a house, you're getting on track for the down payment in a time frame. The rest is yours to blow wherever you want. If you want to buy the most expensive, gold-plated toilets like in the Donald Trump, we probably won't be my client, but good for you. You're welcome to go blow your money that way. So, I don't care where you spend your money as long as you're on track with it, because I do care, food, if it's going on your credit card and sitting there, we're going to have to talk about your food budget. If you're not, that's usually not the first place to cut, because I think you skip the grocery store, all of a sudden you eat out more and you end up spending more money and you gain weight, which is not what we want to do. But I do see it pretty regularly, and I have a pretty wide social network, especially with Facebook. You can see that, and I know certain people, I'm like, again, there's no way they need to be in first class on that flight, or there's no way they can afford it. You'll have certain friends who drive nice cars, $100,000 plus cars, but they don't have furniture. And to each their own. If some of us like to sleep on the floor, I guess I prefer to have a mattress at the very least. I think that's an important thing. But to everyone, they have their own choices, and I think you can make travel work. I have a couple travel writer friends who, again, speaking of traveling around the world, I mean it's like 3-4 months on the road in first class, and they're in the the Middle Eastern airline with the apartment, and that they're using miles and points or getting paid to apply that. So teach their own, I think, but we do try and present a lot more, and it continues ongoing too, because sometimes you grow out of it, but I still have people that are in their 50s that are living like those 22-year-olds we were talking about a little earlier, and whatever comes in, it just goes back out, and you're successful, because you don't really walk around and show your 401k statement or your bank account, or no one really knows how much equity you have in your house necessarily unless they ask or tell you, or at the bar you don't see if someone owns their house or if that car is leased or paid off or what. So some of the things that make you look more successful probably really aren't good for your financials.
Well, so that brings me to a point that David and I have done some surveys and polling on deadfreeguys.com, and by and large, the two main issues that come up for the queer community is that they're concerned about their retirement, they don't have enough saved for retirement, and they have too much debt. They want to pay off their debt, which probably isn't completely opposite from what the straight community is dealing with. But we're more concerned about the queer community, and so I wonder, if they know that having no debt and having a fat savings account is important, but they're spending otherwise, wonder what the rationale is behind that, and how we can, kind of peel back that onion and help them live more authentically to what their concerns are.
But I actually, maybe this might help. I have a question for you, David, because you work with a lot of individuals who are on track financially. They're investing, they're saving for retirement. Do you see some habits in their lives that you don't see in the general population that you may consider to be the ones that we're really kind of focusing on, individuals who have a lot of debt, who aren't saving enough for retirement? What kind of habits do you see that are different between the two?
There are a million habits, but I'll try and give you a few. I talk a lot about this on my blog as well, financialplannerla.com, and I think they make the steps to actually do things to reach their financial goals. People are concerned about retirement, but half the people aren't even saving anything, let alone enough. You start early, you make things automatic. I think the more just, if you have that 401k and a little money goes out of your paycheck every paycheck and goes into the 401k, you don't even miss it. You're not going to go spend it, and you might realize that, oh my God, I'm spending every penny I make a little faster but the money's already been saved. Whereas I'll have a lot of people come sit down with me, they're new clients, and they'll be like, I'm saving $1,000 a month, and they have, I've been doing it for a year, and there's like $500 or $1,000 in their savings account. Well, it needs to stay in there. It's not just putting it in. It's not just putting it in the savings account. It's the keeping it there. It's like, great job. But I think they do get out of some of the habits of the traps that you guys have talked about of just really trying to keep up with the Joneses. I think there's a really great book called The Millionaire Next Door that I really like, and it's just that it's the person. The average millionaire isn't a Kardashian or a pro baseball player, pro basketball player. It's someone who just saves some money for a good amount of time, and it accumulates, and they do smart things with it. So some of the choices of, you can drive the luxury car, but maybe drive it, own it, and drive it a little longer. You can buy the nice clothes, just be selective about it. And you can take those trips, just, you have to pay for them in advance. Don't put them on the credit card, because I think where you guys probably found too, once just a little bit, you got a little behind and a little bigger behind, and all of a sudden there's interest on that is, 2 vacations a year is just going to pay the interest on that debt, let alone getting anything new. So there are a lot of habits, and I think, just getting out of the cycle of keeping up with the Joneses or the gay Joneses, I think is a big thing there.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones. I mean, that was one of my most popular columns. I wrote a thing called "Are Your Gay Friends Making You Poor?" And I went to a dinner party, and someone was talking about, oh my God, this iPhone, and personally, I could care less. I want it to work, and as long as it does it, I probably turn it over when it's dead or when my contract's up and it's really time to do it. I'm not going to go pay $700 just because it's the new S version came out, unless there's some real reason, which at this point I don't see. So you got to do what you got to do.
So do you find have your clients? Any of your clients, have they made decisions in the past to put themselves on better financial footing, or have they always just been financially successful? They came from money, they grew up in that culture, and they know how to keep it growing.
I think it does take work. Even when you're born in that and your parents are successful, there's plenty of people who have parents who are amazingly successful at handling money, and the kids are idiots with money, or vice versa. Someone could learn from their idiot parents, and you learn the lesson that I don't want to be like mom and dad. Nothing against, I love them, but they're idiots with money. So you do see, and there are skills, and I think most people are coming to me because they want to make important steps, and I'm sure a lot of your readers and watchers here are people who want to make steps, and they want to learn more. And even if your parents taught you well, there's usually still things to learn, and most people have some skills, or they're good at, okay, I know how to shop at the market, or I know how to balance my budget, but then the next step of how to invest that money or how to plan for retirement, because not spending every penny you make is step one, but then what to do with that money you're not spending, or how to save money on taxes or invest well, or even just, okay, I'm saving a ton of money, but really how much is that compared to what I actually need? Because you mentioned you have some friends, or we all have friends some are doctors making a ton of money, and their friends are maybe not making that much money if they're at retail or somewhere in between. And they're like, well, I have way more money saved than my friends. Well, your income's way higher, so you probably need to be saving more money, or an IRA, you can put like $5,500 in, and if you're a doctor making a couple $100,000, maxing your IRA is not going to get you to the retirement you want unless you started at 22. And I guarantee you, if you're a doctor, you didn't start at 22. You went to medical school for 1,000 years, and you've got the student loans and other things. So no one has all the skills, and I'm a financial planner. I've been doing it for 13 years, but I'm still learning new things, and things change. So it's not that it's a new thing, but the rules change, the laws change. My situation changed. I was single, now I'm married. All those fun things that are you need to update things, or I was together with someone and then legally marriage was legal, so slight changes there. You could be married before, and now we're legally married, so some of those things change, and it's just tweaks and it's improvements rather than drastic changes. But these are skills that anyone can learn. I don't think there's some magic gene that someone's good with money or someone's bad with money.
Right.
It may seem that way. Some people are going to have a much steeper climb or a bigger hole to dig out of. I know you guys dug out of the credit card problem, and it was a large number, and great, congrats. But I'm sure there's people with worse or lower incomes.
There are.
Yeah.
Well,
in a gig.
what's really important, for those people who are figuring out, okay, I'm not living authentically. I'm not spending my money according to wanting to have a lot of money for retirement or paying off my debt. I think for us, and let me know if you disagree, the key point was realizing what we most wanted in life. When we realized that we most wanted to travel while we were young and could, and to retire well, we realized that all of the expensive clothing, all of the expensive clubbing, all the expensive dinners weren't in line with what our values were.
Right.
So I think maybe for those people who are seeking, want to know what the first step is that they should take, have that discussion with yourself or maybe with your partner to figure out what is it you really want most out of life, and then start structuring your spending and your income accordingly.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely would agree. I think that one of the things that we've kind of wanted to focus on in this show was taking pride in ourselves,
Right.
in all aspects of our lives. And if your financial life is weighing you down so that you don't have pride in the other aspects of your life, taking pride in yourself is not just being able to ride the float down the parade or hang out at the to be seen parties of the weekend. Taking pride or being proud of who we are is that we are, in all aspects of our lives, we can say that we're proud. I'm proud of what I do for a career. I'm proud of the impact I have on the community. I'm proud of the family that I've created, whether that's with an individual and you have children, or whether that's you're on your own and your friends are your family, or you really have a strong connection. So there's a lot of different aspects to being proud of who we are. And if your financial life is a detractor from those other things, that may be a reason why sometimes people feel the need to overcompensate. You're out of balance in one direction and then you swing the other direction.
Yeah,
so, and I think that was kind of one of the things that we got sucked into, was trying to display that we were very proud and happy with our lives. But in order to really be able to take that kind of pride, you have to ask those kind of why questions. Why am I doing this? Right. Why do I want X or Y? And if I want that, what am I willing to do to get that? What do I want to do to make sure that our focus was on retirement and travel? What am I going to do where it isn't necessarily about sacrifices? It's what yeses am I going to say so that it allows me to get to my goal? And I think
What's that question you always ask us? When we want to spend money, David often asks the question, well, do we want to buy, do we want to buy a new TV today, or would we rather go on vacation in 2 months?
Right.
It's a great question. Would you rather do that, or like certain people that can never afford to go to Europe, but they go away for the weekend every weekend, and they got these little tiny trips that they just feel like, I never get to travel, I never do anything, because they're spending money every weekend versus maybe taking a few weekends off or stay home, and you still can go to the bars and hang out with your friends, but it takes money. If you want to do a 2-week trip to Europe, it's going to be a much bigger expense all at once than 2 days away in Boulder, or the ski trip for the weekend, or flying to New York. But there's maybe a bigger reward there too. It's a 2-week vacation versus 2 nights away.
In Europe.
In Europe, and to each their own. That may not be where you want to go, and some people, whatever your dream trip is, sometimes it takes a little work to plan ahead and to save up for, so that you can go do it. And I think personally, I'd have a much better time if I wasn't worried about my credit card maxing out halfway through the trip and not being able to eat. I don't think I would enjoy the trip that way. I've seen people there with the credit card roulette of like 8 cents here, $2 here, and it's not pretty. And waiters in foreign languages don't really love that. They don't understand that.
And what you're kind of getting at there is partly what we were talking about before with your clients is the small habits, and John and I talked a lot about that in our book, and in our blog we talk about just these small little habits, things that people can do to make their lives much better. And I think that we have a couple of tips or things that we like to use. One of John's other questions is, would you rather have the margarita at this bar or on the beach in Mexico? And so sometimes it is just saying, I'm going to have one less drink, or I'm going to go out to eat one less time per month or per week, or whatever it may be. And we the two really good things that we used when we were getting out of debt. One of them was something called NSE. NSE stands for not so expensive, and we realized there's a lot of ways for us to have a really good time and be with our friends and be out and do things where we were able to save 20% or 30% or 40% versus doing the most expensive or the most to be seen thing. Yeah, the grandest thing. Every weekend is, we always used to say, not everybody's birthday is a reason to go out.
Yeah.
We all get one every year.
Right, exactly.
We do. And we've had a lot more fun. We've inviting people over, and your money goes a lot further on a bottle of Kettle One from the market and mixers than drinks out.
Right?
Get the handle, especially if it's on sale, get 6 at once. I'm a big fan of both buying for the extra 30% discount. We have a great time. We actually get to chat. Whereas if I meet some of my friends out at the bar at 10, 11, 12, it's loud. We're not really going to have a serious conversation. I'll be like, hi, you've all been there. It's fun, don't get me wrong, and we might do a little bit of that. But now that I'm married, I don't like to be quite there till 2 a.m. like I used to.
Right.
But I have people over and we have some drinks, or we'll have dinner in and we order Chinese food, and it's cheaper than 1 or 2 meals at, again, the not so expensive restaurant. You go out, and if we're going to meet people, generally everything around West Hollywood here is pretty pricey if it's a sit-down restaurant.
Right.
Chinese food ordering in is probably the price of one person. Someone brings a bottle. Now we've got more money to go buy the drinks, or we have money saving up 2 or 3 weekends on that, and we can go to Cancun or Puerto Vallarta and have some fun in Mexico. And you get just as drunk off the vodka at home, probably drunker depending on the bar.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other things that we talk about is something called money chunking. We did a Monday Money Minute video on this, and I think this is really good for Pride, because a lot of times if we are slightly money conscious, we understand we have a certain amount of money. So we set aside a certain amount of money, but then you blow it all in the first night. All of a sudden it's gone, and then what do you do the rest of the weekend? Well, you put all of that money on your credit card. I mean, we've done that so many times. And the idea with money chunking is that we just take our budget and we break it down into the pieces. And that's really kind of one of the things we recommend for big events or weekends or vacations, is to take the amount that you have set aside. And in many cases, we encourage individuals to take it out in cash, break it down into those pieces, and you head out with that piece, so that so you're going to spend $70 tonight. Because it's Pride weekend, you've saved up a little extra, you're going to spend $70 tonight versus spending, and you're going to break that down between 3 or 4 nights, $70 each night for 3 or 4 nights. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but a lot of people would spend that $250.
That can go very quickly. And it is a lot of money, but it's good to see that. And if you don't spend it, now you've got extra money for the next day. So I think that's a great way to break it down and to kind of put things in perspective. And I know there's studies out there. I don't know the details, but people spend less money when they're spending actual cash.
Yep. Right.
It's very easy, especially. Let's just pretend we're drinking. I'm assuming on these going out, we're talking here. So it's very easy to keep swiping that credit card and not really remember how much you've spent. And sometimes you get home and go, oh, I did buy 4 rounds of drinks. And you only remember because the credit card bills or the credit card slips in your pocket. So, you will spend a lot less that way. I think that's a great tip to keep people
Oftentimes
going.
when you go to the bars, you just give the bartender you start a tab, you take your card, right? And you just keep walking up and say, I'll have another, I'll buy a round, and all of a sudden it's like,
oh, and tabs are even worse, because it's one thing if you're just swiping every time, it's still you won't remember, but the tab, you get to the end, you go, oh.
And the next day,
how many rounds? And thanks, guys.
I had 10 drinks.
Right.
And you also have a lot of clients who are generous, but they end up buying a lot more drinks for a lot of other people. So especially if you're really trying to cut back or budget's really tight, but try and try and keep the money for yourself, not be selfish, but have pride in your own finances and your own drinking, and get the drinks for yourselves, or don't necessarily pick up the tab every time.
Everybody.
For everyone else.
So you kind of touched on it. In some of the first iteration of Queer Money, we had talked to some people about, I think in bigger urban areas like LA and Denver and New York City, we kind of think that the gay fight is over, the fight for equality is over. But as we've learned from Mississippi and North Carolina and some other states, the gays who are living in those communities, the queer people who are living in those communities, are still fighting. I mean, some of those communities, black people are still fighting for equality. So I think it's important for us to, when we take pride in our finances, the reason why I think that's so important is that we have to remember that the fight isn't over, and for the causes and issues that we're concerned about, we could use our money for the greater good as opposed to going out and having a good time. We can make ourselves financially secure and start using our money to help finish the fight.
Right.
Absolutely. You do want to have pride where you spend your money, where like the businesses you support, we do want to spend money and avoid businesses that are friendly.
Right.
You do see, again, the fight isn't over. People are going to keep attacking us again. Slavery ended, 150 plus years ago, and we still have racism, we still have problems, we still have discrimination. There is still discrimination in the workplace. You can be fired, probably the trans community is still fighting for the bathrooms, and we're fighting with them. There's so many things, and they're going to keep attacking us. The people that don't like us. We'll just leave it at that. And then there is things that we're catching up on, like HIV, and there's a million other gay type, LGBT type issues that we need to support. It's great to have pride in your finances and support charities or support groups that are fighting for our rights. And again, there are places in the world where you can be killed for being gay. So, it isn't just here domestically. It's easy to think, oh, we're in LA. But there's gay bashings here in LA. There's gay bashings in New York. There's gay bashings around. And it will be some time, and there will be things before this is over, and I'm not Pollyanna enough to think that there'll never be homophobia, but I think it is decreasing quickly. In the younger generations, it's much less prevalent, but it's still there. While we're not going to be, the KKK walking down the street as much as it might have been 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, we can be out and about much more and more proud, but at the same time, it's still going to be an issue, and I think, for quite some time, we're still going to have the people that are closeted at the workforce or closeted at home or kicked out of their homes and all that fun stuff. Lots of homeless kids, unfortunately. So there is tons of stuff to work with.
Yeah. So I think it speaks to the need for us to be financially secure as a community and not be so dismissive, because we still need to fight for those important issues.
Right. And that's kind of one of the primary purposes with Queer Money, is that we want to help grow a financially strong LGBT community. And the reason for that is because like we were talking about with your debt, if your debt or your spending is a detractor in your life, then you're not able to give, whether it's time or money, to the things that can actually help the world become a better place. And so that's really what we want to focus on, is helping individuals be able to be more and do more. And one of the ways to do that is by being financially secure. Doesn't mean to say to make a ton of money. We're not saying everybody needs to be rich, but the ability to do more and be more with your time and money really comes down to focusing on just being secure, financially secure.
Absolutely. I think, I'm a big fan of being secure and financially independent and happy. It's not about being the billionaire, the multi-millionaire. I'm not trying to get my own private plane. I don't want to, have a rug on my head and be Donald Trump, but he's not as rich as he sounds, but we'll leave it at that. But at the same time, I do want to be secure, and I think I want to be able to do things and give back. And there's a certain amount of time I have, but I think the more money I make, probably the more time I have available, to give and to volunteer. And then also the more money I have, the more easily I can give substantial amounts of various charities, like all the gay and lesbian centers or HIV. I've done the AIDS Life Cycle 7 times. That's a big commitment. There's an expense and a week off, and that's it's just a crazy time, and it's an amazing life-changing experience. So it's an awesome thing. I recommend everyone do it, but it does take money and time, and I know some people can't do it because they can't even afford it, or can't take the week off work because they won't be able to pay their bills, or even get the week off work, let alone take the time. So it's just nice to have a little bit more security, so you have the option to do more stuff, and we do want to present successful. I think it's much nicer when you're presenting successful and success out to the world and you actually are, and you can back it up rather than, Okay, I'm successful, and now I'm broke. Oh, I'm successful, and now I'm not. Oh crap! I put $1,500 donation on my credit card, and I hope it doesn't go, or hope it goes through.
Exactly.
Yeah, so pride is just more than looking good and having the washboard abs and having the great clothing, right? We need to remember in this week or this month of Pride that there's there's a wide gamut of it. There's
Right,
lots of things
exactly.
to consider.
Right.
How are you giving back as a community? How are you living independently, and how free are you allowing yourself to be? There's a lot of things to consider. So we're just asking people to start looking at things more than just the superficial, to make themselves more proud both internally and externally.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at a beautiful man or being a beautiful man and or woman, and wanting to have that kind of success in your life too. But is it balanced with the other things that you really want,
Right?
Or that are important to you as a person?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of
All
want
for
to
washboard abs.
Yeah.
But again,
Wish I
that
could
should
get
be
them back.
the only thing we got going here.
Yeah, maybe we have to cut back on the wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Priorities. I think the wine's going to win. I hate to break it to you. It's winning in my life, but I feel you.
It does definitely have a lot of control over us. You wanted to say something?
Well, I just wanted to, just along the lines of pride, I wanted to mention a quote from Harvey Milk, and I'll just read it here. It says, "All men are created equal. No matter how hard they try, they can never, ever erase those words from that comes from the Constitution. That is what America is about." And so, our equality in that we've been fighting so much for, we've tried so hard to gain this equality, we don't want to sacrifice that because of our being distracted by other things, whether it's financial or looking pretty or whatever it may be. Our equality, we have fought really hard for this. We don't want to just end up back in the middle like everyone else, feeling crappy because of our debt situation,
Right.
Our financial situations.
Yeah.
I'll say average is bad. The average American, gay, straight, or otherwise, is
Right.
broke.
Right.
I think you guys probably saw the like over 50% of people couldn't come up with $400 for an emergency.
Right.
It's not a good sign. I don't know these people, but that's a huge number, and that's probably right around the same number that have zero save for retirement. I wouldn't want to live off a Social Security check. This year, I think it's about $1,300 a month. So I don't know your guys' rent, but I couldn't live on that. It wouldn't pay my property tax bill. I probably wouldn't pay where you guys are living. So people do need to take these steps and have pride in their finances. Straight people should have pride in their finances as well. It's not just a gay thing, but I know we're here taking it from that. We have some big advantages. Most of us, or many of us, are double income, no children, or even single income, no children, which frees up a lot of money, but we do live in more expensive neighborhoods than others. I think you guys are in Denver. I think we've talked about how expensive it is there, and West Hollywood here is quite expensive versus living out in Nebraska or Iowa or somewhere else. That there are gay people there, don't get me wrong, but I think less of a large presence there.
Yeah. I think it's important too. We shared a couple, 3 or 4 different tips for people. I think it's sometimes it's daunting to think, oh my gosh, I'm a financial nightmare, and it's hard to kind of right the ship sometimes. And I think for that reason, some people may just continue to ignore it because it's easier to ignore it in their mind than it is to address it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that Tim Ferriss was talking about this in one of his recent podcasts. To just do one thing different a week or one thing different a month. Try to implement things slowly. And the best way to eat an elephant, right, is one bite at a time. So, just don't think that you have to change everything drastically all the time. Don't think you have to right the ship immediately. Just make small, decisive decisions, and over time you will improve things.
Exactly.
Slowly chip away at your debt. Slowly start to put towards your retirement. Like you mentioned, if you could start at 22 and put a couple dollars in every month or every paycheck, you'll be surprised at how quickly that grows.
Yeah. Exactly.
You really won't miss it. So many of those little steps you make, just little changes, one less drink per night on the weekend, all of a sudden you got $50 more a week, and it's $200 a month, a few $1,000 a year, a few little other places like that, just being smart. Again, I'm sure your dollars go a lot further now that we're not paying all that credit card interest.
Yes.
So that's, that's another thing which is, I saw that much. It's just got to be a huge relief off your shoulders and just looking forward. And it's just such a nice thing to be moving forward and moving into positive territory rather than just filling in the hole you've already dug. And again, you don't have to be perfect. No one's perfect on all this stuff. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't want to be kind of the Oprah Winfrey diet. I lost 100 pounds and then I put on 200 back and I lost 100 pounds. And you're never really doing it. You want to make small life changes that you can actually maintain and things that are small changes that are realistic. Because again, some people probably, I'm going to not spend any money. I'm never going out. And that's probably never realistic. That's all or nothing isn't always going to work for most people or many people. Or at some point they hold that ball underwater and all of a sudden it bursts and you spend way more money because, I didn't get an oil change. I saved $30 and then your car blows up. Well,
You made the point about, how much we were spending in interest. We were spending about $10,000 a year financing our debt. And so when we paid off that debt, that was a $10,000 pay increase essentially. Yeah. And who wouldn't be skipping out of work if they got a $10,000 pay increase, right?
And there's no taxes on that savings, so it's more like 15 to 20, realistically in your pocket.
Right. So that just changed our quality of life, even without getting pay increases from work. That just completely changed everything, and we had more cash and more time, and we could do more than we ever could when we were living on credit cards.
Yeah.
So.
And it all was precipitated on us making some small changes that really added up. Right. Yeah, we maybe did them a little bit more quickly than most people, but those small changes added up for us.
Right. Sometimes you have to work into it. You might do a small step first and go, oh my God, that was easy, or that felt great, and you do the bigger step next time. And some of the steps at the beginning, it may seem so small, because especially with the amount of debt you had, you're like, oh my God, I paid $500 towards it, and it still just went down this much because there's so much interest. But it will take, I'm sure it got much faster as you paid it down. It paid less interest was being charged, and it got paid off faster. So, little steps can make a big thing. And sometimes people also like, well, I only put in, $500 in my 401k. It made me $5 last year. Big deal. Well, all of a sudden that becomes $100 or it makes thousands of dollars. And, it does the big swoop up at the end. The last year you work, all of a sudden your $1 million is making, $100,000 for you or $200,000 for you. And it starts to be a much bigger number because you have more money. It may be the same percentage of earnings, but when you have more money, it makes you more money. Just
power
like
of compounding.
The power of compounding is huge. So get started sooner, and that dollars you save now is worth a lot more than the money you save in 30, 40 years. We have a long ways to retirement for some of us.
Go by a lot more quickly than you think. The older we get, we're like, wow, geez, that time does fly by. It's not just a saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you, David, for
my pleasure.
Starting off with our new iteration of Queer Money, and we're going to have you back quite regularly.
Looking forward to it.
So we look forward to more and deeper discussions. And so that's, I think we've pretty much covered everything, right?
Yeah, and David, if you wouldn't mind, just tell people, our listeners and watchers, where they can find you as well.
Great. I'm David Rae. I'm a certified financial planner here in LA with Trilogy Financial. If you want to check out more about me, check out my blog at financialplannerla.com or my website, davidrae, that's RAE.com. Check them out.
You're frequently in the Huffington Post, too.
Yeah, and the Advocate, and hopefully I'll be with you guys, too. So.
Absolutely. So, and we'll put your all your information on a slide on the video that we added out.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Have a good weekend. Chat with you guys.
Have a good Pride Month.
You too.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. We just serviced you. Now you get to service us by subscribing to this podcast on iTunes and signing up for the Queer Money Lifestyle newsletter at queer.money.
Well, I'm not really gay.
Would help me if I had a personal chef made all my healthy meals for me. Right. So instead I'll have a Snickers tonight for dinner.
The other end, I like the butts. So.